To me, masculinity is sort of just a societal understanding of certain behaviors that people have. I don't think anything necessarily made me want to act masculine. I think part of it was that I just, as I'm sure lots of women experience, I just kind of flat out didn't feel like putting up with all the expectations that women are supposed to put up with. I wake up like 5 minutes before the bus. Like, what am I supposed to do? Put on makeup before I leave? Like,
I come from a very diverse family. In Latino and Black culture, this is like a no. If you're a girl, you wear a dress, and if you don't walk around in men's clothing, and you don't tell people that you're gay, and families don't discuss these things. It's very hush-hush. People are embarrassed. People don't want to speak about it. Okay, what happens when I do tell them? So it's either going to be they're going to sweep it under the rug and pretend like I've never said it, or they're going to give me a hard time about it. And I would rather not have either one.
And it wasn't until I got into high school that I started making friends that started breaking out of the gender binary. And that was the first time that I ever thought, like, oh, I don't need to shave my legs. That's just what I've been told to. And then immediately that's kind of when the backlash started happening, with my parents starting to say mean things to me and say that it's ugly of me and unhygienic of me to have hairy legs, whereas, you know, my dad's Italian and he's very hairy and nobody would call him unhygienic for having hairy legs.
There were moments in my childhood where I knew that I wanted to be a boy. I would often tell my mom, like, you should have had 2 sons. And I would, when my brother wasn't around, I would, like, put his clothes on. I knew, like, I wanted to be a boy, but I didn't know what that meant for me, because as far as I was concerned, like, there's no way that I could just magically wake up and be a guy. When I came out to my mom, which was at age 17, she was sad. And she didn't say to me, like, oh, wow, that's terrible, or she didn't say anything to me, really. She just heard what I said and then said she just needed a moment. And I remember watching her. She went outside and she just sat there and thought. And she was just staring out into the distance, just sitting there thinking, and it, like, broke my heart. And that was the moment where I decided that I was no longer going to transition, and that some way I needed to find a way to express my masculinity without transitioning. And I allowed myself to understand that me having female reproductive organs doesn't make me any less masculine than my brother.
I feel like a lot of the positive attributes that I've had being socialized as a woman kind of comes out in my relationships with men when they haven't been socialized to act in a certain way. Once we start becoming closer friends, then the, like, feminine, empathetic, caring part of me comes out, and I can, you know, relate to my male friends on a very deep and personal and emotional and intimate level that they're probably not used to as much, because men aren't really tend to, you know, be socialized into very caring or emotional roles.
So in the relationships that I've had, my masculinity is very important. In the last relationship that I had, right off the bat, I was told that I was the man of the relationship, and that the roles were to be 70-30, and I was 70%. It was pretty, obviously, unequal and very hard. It was a struggle, because I had to then allow my needs to not be met most of the time. I wasn't really allowed to show emotion, and when I did, there was backlash because of the way that I naturally am, just naturally being masculine, and the clothes that I wear. People will automatically assume that that's what I want, like that the relationships that I desire are very heteronormative, and so I don't really have choices. Even as far as, like, Christmas gifts, like, they want like, the things that I would get are like underwear and socks. And I like underwear and socks, but still, it was like, well, what do you, it's very typical of, well, what do you get for a guy? And those were the kind of things that I would get.
When I was a kid, you know, my parents would buy my clothes for me. And I don't think that I really understood that it was the gender of clothing that made me feel uncomfortable in them until later. It wasn't until I got into high school that I realized that I didn't actually think I was ugly, I just didn't like the clothes that I was wearing.
So there is a thing within the Black queer community in which masculine women have some sort of invisible beef with one another. If I'm in a room with another woman who looks masculine, it's like tension. That's a very common thing. Like, people try to assert themselves as the alpha. Like, I am, like, it's like the animal world. Like, I am more masculine than you, or I am in charge around here. And I don't know why that is. It's pretty stupid to me.
Because a lot of my mannerisms are still kind of feminine, people usually see me as a woman anyway, but also that comes with my demeanor because I'm also very short and skinny. So it's easier for people to just look at me as like a weird woman rather than a man.
It's very suffocating to know that at all times I'm on watch. My masculinity is being watched. People are watching to see if I fall short of being masculine enough.
And whenever my parents said things like, oh, you should, or like, you need to shave, or, you know, you need to look pretty for this event, or you need to wear better clothes, I'd ask, like, why? And nobody had a good answer for me, so I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's all just stupid then. I guess it's all just arbitrary.
I think I would like for the way that masculinity is kind of expected to play out in society and relationships to be redefined. What is masculinity? Is it having a penis? I don't think so. I think masculinity embodies a lot of strength.
It was less about me trying to fit myself into a role and just more about me wanting to do what was most comfortable for me. And it just happened to be that I was just more comfortable presenting masculine.